So we have a winner for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. The member associations of Canada, Mexico and USA have been selected by the FIFA Congress to host the 2026 FIFA World Cup.
Imagine you're throwing a birthday party. It's your house, your cake, your guest list. Everything's ready. But then, at the last minute, your next-door neighbor blasts louder music, sets up a flashier spread, and suddenly, everyone drifts over there. No one's saying your party's bad, it's just the other one feels more exciting. That's pretty much how the US is feeling right now about the 2026 World Cup. They haven't lost their host status, but Canada just snagged a brighter stage. Meanwhile, major contracts are slipping away. Visa processing is stalling. Thousands of workers are still waiting. And people are starting to ask, are we still in the driver's seat for the event we invited the whole world to? FIFA expects the global revenue for the 2026 World Cup cycle to hit around $11 billion, mainly from broadcast rights, sponsorships, ticket sales, and hospitality. Some reports suggest the number could even exceed $10 billion just from the final tournament alone. That kind of money was supposed to be a major economic boost. But when Canada stepped up and secured more matches, suddenly, the financial winds started to shift. As soon as Canada officially got the green light to host additional games, public chatter picked up. Will that $11 billion still hold firm? Or is it now swaying by the day due to a neighbor's decision? For folks attending in person, this is more than just a number. It could hit your wallet through flight prices, hotel stays, or travel packages, because when a single location changes on the tournament map, it could mean shelling out an extra $50 to $100 for your next big adventure. In Boston, Gillette Stadium has been tapped to host 7 matches, including a quarterfinal on July 9th, 2026, more than initially expected. The city is planning for around 450,000 visitors, which could bring in an estimated $500 million in economic impact. That means real business for hotels, local services, and the tourism industry. But residents should also prepare for price changes. A hotel night that normally costs $150 might shoot up to $180 to $200, simply because demand will be sky high during the event. Down in Miami and South Florida, the government has approved a support package worth $46 million to $21 million in cash, and $25 million in services like security, healthcare, and sanitation. The goal is to fuel economic growth, which is projected to reach $920 million, thanks to boosts in tourism, infrastructure, and jobs. Still, not everyone's sold. Some locals wonder if that Big A budget should have gone to community programs instead, like free school lunches or public clinics. The challenge is clear: make the economy thrive without losing sight of what everyday folks really need. Many experts are voicing concern that strict immigration policies and long visa wait times, some stretching over a year, could hurt the U.S.'s ability to host a smooth World Cup. It's not just tourists affected, but also players, reporters, and the behind-the-scenes crews who help the event run. The Trump administration has pushed back against these worries. The vice president assured the public that the U.S. wants visitors to come and celebrate. And Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem said they'll be working closely with federal agencies to speed up visa processing and keep the event secure and efficient. FIFA President Gianni Infantino still believes the World Cup could bring $50 billion in overall economic value and create nearly 300,000 jobs in the U.S. Even so, the new visa policies come with a catch: a $250 visa integrity fee for most short-term tourist visas. Many travel agencies are already warning that higher costs and more red tape could discourage international fans. In Houston, one of the host cities, homestay owners and event services are beginning to worry too. If visa issues continue to pile up, no one really knows how many guests will actually make it.
And I'm not happy about anything having to do with that war. I settled 7 wars, and actually, if you think about pre-wars, add 3 more, so it would be 10. I thought this would be in the middle of the pack in terms of difficulty. No, I'm not happy about anything about that war. Nothing. Not happy at all. He's removing his tariffs, yeah. He's removing his retaliatory tariffs, which I thought was nice. And we're going to have another call soon.
Canada has just made a quiet move, but one strong enough to rattle the entire North American supply chain. Overnight, hundreds of U.S. factories lost contracts. Canadian supermarkets are gradually phasing out American products from their shelves. What used to be one of the world's closest trade relationships is now quietly shifting. This is more than just a dip in exports. It's a clear sign. Canada is slowly changing direction, stepping out of America's trade shadow. The real question now is, what does this shift mean for everyday things like prices, jobs, and your household budget? Between May 2024 and May 2025, Canada's export share to the U.S. dropped from 78% to 68%, the lowest level in years. This isn't happening by accident. It's a deliberate move as trade tensions between the two countries have grown. Canada is pushing to diversify, with more goods now heading to the UK, the EU, Australia, Indonesia, and Japan. Gold exports to the UK have gone up especially fast. But overall, those gains haven't yet made up for the $7.7 billion Canadian dollar drop in trade with the US. In April 2025 alone, Canada's trade surplus with the United States shrank to just $3.6 billion Canadian dollars, the lowest since late 2020, after exports dropped by 15.7%. Even though sales to other countries rose slightly. What does this mean for shoppers? Well, you might start noticing it on the price tags. A box of cookies that used to cost $4 Canadian dollars and 50 cents from an American supplier might now cost $5.20 if it's sourced from farther away. You'll likely see more items from Australia, Japan, or Europe filling up store shelves. For workers in industries that rely on U.S. partners, this shift could mean changes to contracts, fewer orders, or even smaller paychecks in the near future. To help companies cope with the ripple effects of new tariffs and trade changes, the Canadian government has rolled out a support package worth over $6.5 billion Canadian dollars. Of that, $5 billion is set aside to help boost exports to new markets. Another $1 billion goes to the agri-food sector, and $500 million will be available as low-interest loans to help businesses keep running and protect jobs. Ontario has added its own $11 billion Canadian dollars package, offering tax breaks and rebates to ease the pressure on business owners and help them avoid job cuts. What does this mean for the average Canadian? It means prices may not climb as fast as they could have. For example, if a can of bread used to cost $3 Canadian dollars, instead of jumping to $3.50 due to rising costs, it might stay the same because the company got a bit of help. Farmers and food producers also benefit from more stable demand and less uncertainty in global markets. It's one way the government is trying to keep major waves from crashing directly into your grocery bills or dinner table. Even as Canada spreads its trade around, the U.S. remains a giant in the picture. In 2024, about 76% of Canada's total exports still went south of the border, and total trade between the two countries topped $1 trillion Canadian dollars for the third year in a row. Still, between May and June 2025, that number started to slip. Exports to the U.S. made up just 70% of Canada's total in June, down from about 83% in the same month a year earlier. The trend is clear. Change is happening, even if slowly, but it's not as simple as walking away. In key areas like energy, Canada is still deeply tied to the U.S. Just look at Alberta. About 90% of its crude oil exports still head to American refineries. Even as opportunities are starting to open up in Asian markets, experts say the long-standing trade setup between the two economies means a full break is nearly impossible, even if Canada is trying to slowly reduce its dependence.
Anybody in the supply chain hears about duties and tariffs or any other fees, they get very anxious about those fees being imposed.
We know here in Canada over the last number of weeks and months that Donald Trump is doing everything in his power to destroy our economy.
Picture this. You decide to fix up your kitchen, nothing major, just new wooden floors and a few cabinets. The contractor shows up, measures everything, nods in approval. But when you ask for a quote, he sighs and says, last week, probably around $5,000. This week, closer to $6,000. Wood prices are jumping every day. Sounds ridiculous. Not really. Somewhere far from your control. A new tax policy just got signed. A strong tweet was sent. A quick nod happened in Washington. And suddenly, supply chains start to shake. According to a March 2025 survey by the NAHB, new import tariffs have added an average of $9,200 to the cost of building a single home. The NAHB, or Wells Fargo Housing Market Index, has also dropped to 39, the lowest in 7 months. Investopedia reports that tariffs on building materials could hit as high as 34.5%, adding anywhere from $7,500 to $10,000 to the cost of constructing a single-family house. What does this mean for everyday folks? A house that was expected to cost $300,000 might now cost $309,200. Kitchen cabinets, doors, hardwood flooring, they all go up. A $5,000 kitchen set might now cost $5,500. Even if you are not building a house, rising material costs push up rental prices and home renovation expenses. That goal of finding a stable place to live, it just got a bit farther away. In February 2025, the NAHB, or Wells Fargo Index, dropped to 42, its lowest point in 5 months, due to worries about tariffs and mortgage rates hovering near 7%. By March, the index dipped even lower, to 39, the lowest in 7 months. At the same time, 71% of homebuilders reported that spring 2025 has been their slowest season since 2019. Why? Higher material costs and cautious buyers hesitating over steep prices and rising interest rates. This makes building or fixing a home harder to plan. Let's say you had a $20,000 budget to add a second floor. Now, you might be looking at $21,500 or even $22,000. If you are in the market to buy, the slowdown means fewer builders taking on projects, and material prices keep going up regardless. The U.S. plans to raise tariffs on softwood lumber from Canada from 14.5% to nearly 40%, including anti-subsidy taxes and a proposed 25% increase under the Trump administration. In response, Canada announced a support package for its lumber sector worth 1.2 billion Canadian dollars, around 870 million US dollars, including 700 million Canadian dollars in low-interest loans and 500 million Canadian dollars for product development and market expansion. Right away, US lumber futures jumped to $695 per 1,000 board feet, the highest in 3 years, and up 39% from the same time last year. Even though home building demand is cooling, this translates to much higher wood-related costs. A framing set that used to cost $500 could now be $700. Home construction, renovations, even furniture builds are seeing big cost hikes. Many families are delaying plans or settling for cheaper materials they do not really like. And even with Canada's financial help for the industry, lumber prices show no sign of dropping. American consumers are the first to feel the squeeze.
For decades, coffee imports entered the United States largely duty-free, but now some of America's top trading partners are facing double-digit tariffs on their imports, including coffee. It's straining an industry that provides more than 1 million jobs in the US, and it's poised to strain prices too.
Something big just happened, and you'll probably feel it most clearly each morning. Right there in your hand, your usual cup of coffee. A new tariff from the White House, a strong reaction from Brazil, and a global coffee market thrown into turmoil. The result? Prices are jumping, supermarkets are scrambling, cafes are raising their eyebrows, and the everyday consumers, are left holding the bill. But this is not just about pricier coffee. It's a clear sign that pressure on prices, supply chains, and daily spending is spreading fast from offices in Washington to store shelves across the country. Still think your morning coffee is just a habit. It is not that simple anymore. The Trump administration has just slapped a 50% tariff on coffee imports from Brazil, a country that supplies about 35 to 40% of the coffee Americans drink. And right after the news broke, global Arabica coffee prices shot up, hitting $4.30 per pound in early 2025, twice as high as the same time last year. In the US, the price of roasted coffee exports has already jumped 11.8%, and instant coffee has gone up 12.4%. From May 2024 to May 2025, according to forecasts from the Wall Street Journal, this new tariff could push retail coffee prices up by 15 to 20% in the near future. What does that mean for your wallet? A bag of coffee that used to cost $12 might soon cost $13.20 to $14.40 in just a few weeks. Small cafes are also feeling the pressure and may need to raise their prices or cut back on discounts. That familiar cup of morning coffee, it might just start making your wallet feel a little lighter. The International Coffee Organization, ICO, reports that global coffee prices actually dropped 11.8% in July 2025, down to 259.31 US cents per pound. That's lower than the month before, but still higher than July 2024. Yet, coffee prices in the US are still climbing. The June 2025 CPI shows that coffee prices in supermarkets rose 2.2%, helping push overall food prices up by 0.3%. Even though input costs are dropping, taxes, shipping, and high interest rates keep final prices high. For everyday shoppers, the difference is showing up in receipts. That same $12 bag of coffee might now ring up at $12.25 or $12.30. It may not sound like much, but if you drink coffee daily, those extra cents add up quickly. The US retail scene is feeling the heat from all sides. Tariffs, rising goods costs, expensive logistics, and high interest rates. Chains like Food Line and Stop & Shop, part of Ahold Delhaize, are pushing back against price hikes from big-name brands like Nivea and Heineken, trying to shield shoppers from sticker shock. In the middle of all this, the new US tariffs are expected to keep pushing coffee prices even higher, adding more weight to Americans already juggling rising living costs. Next time you go to the store, look closely. You might notice more store brand items taking up space, while some well-known brands quietly disappear. A bag of laundry detergent might still be priced reasonably thanks to retailer strategies. But that cup of morning coffee, it could cost you an extra 50 cents to $1, a small increase. Yes, but enough to make some people rethink their daily habits.
We're selling it for like 40% more just because it's cost so much to get, right? And there's less in stock because people aren't buying this.
Imagine you're running a small auto body shop. Overnight, steel costs shoot up 6 to 9%. Parts orders stall, and workers are sent home early. Sounds absurd, right? But that's exactly what's happening in Detroit, where Canada's silent strike on procurement rules is rippling through US automotive supply chains. A Michigan small business owner opens his shop, only to find this week's steel delivery is delayed again. He's heard friends in nearby towns having similar trouble. Why are steel shelves suddenly empty? And why do prices keep rising? Recently, the US placed a 50% tariff on imported steel and aluminum from Canada. Using Section 232, Canada chose not to fight back with tariffs, but instead quietly changed government buying rules and increased environmental requirements, making it harder for US buyers to get Canadian steel. This has left truckers, warehouse workers, and steel plant crews in cities like Detroit with less to do. Some are called in for fewer shifts. Others watch overtime hours disappear as prices inch upward. Families start to worry if everyday costs will soon follow. For those who rely on steady pay, this uncertainty makes planning for monthly bills more challenging, and conversations at dinner tables start to shift toward cost cutting. If this pattern stays over the next 2 months, an estimated 1,500 steelworkers and drivers in the Midwest may face reduced hours or temporary layoffs as factories scramble for supplies. Even small changes in work schedules can quickly add up, putting extra pressure on households and local businesses that depend on these industries to keep moving. Chaos. The summer brings an uneasy quiet to assembly plants, where once machines ran day and night. Now some lines sit idle waiting for steel shipments that do not arrive on schedule. Ford reports a jump of $2.5 billion in added costs just since the start of the year, driven by shortages and delays. Steel and aluminum prices have risen between 6 and 9% in the last few weeks, eating into company profits and slowing production across Michigan. Factory managers are forced to cut back shifts, while some suppliers consider temporary closures to wait out the shortage. For households depending on those jobs, a single missed paycheck can mean tough choices about groceries, medical bills, or summer repairs. If shortages continue for another month, Buyers could see the sticker price for new vehicles go up by as much as $400 before fall. The North. Canada is investing $1 billion Canadian dollars to upgrade its steel industry, focusing on electric arc furnaces and stricter environmental standards. The plan is to make steel cleaner and more attractive for markets like the EU. This push for green steel means Canadian exports could soon find new customers abroad, while U.S. producers may face more competition, especially as electric vehicle makers and large infrastructure projects demand lower carbon footprints. For now, U.S. buyers needing green certified steel may have fewer choices and higher costs. In the next 2 months, the price of certified green steel for U.S. construction or auto projects could climb by $45 per ton, adding pressure to project budgets and renovation plans.
The other problem is that the United States is starting to export less agricultural commodities, and that is a lot in part due to Mr. Trump's trade policies.
You spend months nurturing your crops, only to wake up one morning and realize your entire harvest suddenly has nowhere to go. Sounds ridiculous. But that's exactly what's happening across the American Midwest, as China unexpectedly cancels billions of dollars worth of American soybean orders, setting off a domino effect that threatens U.S. agriculture in the middle of a shifting global trade landscape. There were harvest seasons when Iowa and Illinois soybeans sailed confidently to China, sustaining farm families and small Midwest towns. But this week, everything changed. China abruptly canceled contracts for 2.4 million tons of U.S. soybeans. A $1.1 billion blow, soybean prices plunged 8.2% overnight. Storage bins are now 13% fuller. With no buyers, I've never seen my harvest just sit here with no idea what comes next, says a 53-year-old Iowa farmer. The region faces $470 million in lost revenue, impacting not just big farms, but also groceries, tuition, and savings for thousands of families. If the situation continues, average income for Midwest soybean households could drop another $1,200 to $1,800 this year, and about 4,500 seasonal jobs may vanish before the next harvest. The question lingers: who will buy the beans that have fed this land for generations? Not long ago, American soybeans were China's top choice, with Midwest shipments part of rural life. Now, after over $11 billion in Chinese-backed investment in Brazil's ports and railways, Brazil has taken over. Chinese buyers now pay $14 to $22 more per ton for reliable, long-term supply from Brazil, which provides 70% of China's soybean imports. For many American farmers, this shift isn't just about lost income, it's about being pushed aside in a changing world. This year, U.S. soybean exports to China may drop by up to 10 million tons, about 20%, forcing over 6,000 family farms to cut production or risk bankruptcy. Soybeans were once the ticket to a secure future. Now they are a question mark hanging over tomorrow. Is America still an agricultural powerhouse, or quietly becoming an outsider at the world's export table? It's not just soybeans under pressure corn. America's golden crop is feeling it too. U.S. corn exports to China have plunged 79% year on year. China also released 1 million more tons from its reserves to cut reliance on U.S. suppliers. For many Midwest farmers, once hopeful fields now bring worry. As corn prices drop and incomes shrink, tough decisions loom about next year's planning and keeping the family farm going. If this trend continues, U.S. corn prices may drop another 10 to 12% in the next 3 months, slashing profits for middle-aged farmers by $900 to $1,500 per household this year. Over 2,000 small farms might suspend operations or cut acreage by 15 to 20% next season. Some changes come quietly by the time you feel them. They're already woven into the fabric of everyday rural life. Every shipload of soybeans now carries more than a harvest. It represents America's global standing. As China and South American partners develop a new trading system, using less dollars and favoring long-term deals, the U.S. role is fading. Without quick investment in infrastructure and modernized supply chains, American farmers could lose their vital spot in the global market. If no major changes happen, U.S. soybean export value may drop another 15 to 20% next year, costing 8,000 to 1,000 jobs in soybean states. Someday we might look back and wonder, was there a time when America's strength was measured by the price of a bushel of soybeans?
We don't make a lot of money. Now, I can't absorb, if all of a sudden there's a 50% tariff on something or even a 25%, I can't absorb all of that as a family business.
If you think potatoes are only a farmer's concern, you might want to think again. In Canada, golden potato fields are shrinking. Contracts are being torn up, and cold storage facilities are filling with unsold seed potatoes. Meanwhile, in the United States, the price of potatoes and potato-based foods is quietly creeping upward. This is no small matter. Behind it lies an undercurrent from Canada, where truckloads of potatoes heading south to the US have fallen sharply, triggering changes that could reach right into our own kitchens. According to the latest figures, Canada's fresh potato exports to the United States have plunged by about 19%, largely due to import tariffs and shifts in trade policy. In contrast, exports of frozen potato products, especially frozen potatoes, have risen modestly by around 10%. In 2025, U.S. retail food prices are projected to rise nearly 3%, with the food-at-home category alone increasing by more than 2%. This means a 5-pound bag of potatoes, a little over 2 kilograms, that once cost American shoppers $3.50 could soon reach $3.80 to $4. For processed potato products like frozen French fries, prices may rise by several dozen cents per pack. That might seem small, but over the course of a year, it can add up to a noticeable expense for households. To reduce dependence on the U.S. market, Canada has signed a $1.6 billion Canadian dollars agreement with Asian partners. This is a significant move, as Canada is a member of the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership CPTPP. The pact allows Canadian processed potato exports to markets such as Japan, South Korea, and Indonesia without import tariffs. Still, the U.S. remains Canada's largest buyer. In 2021 to 2022, the U.S. accounted for 89% of Canada's French fry exports, roughly $1.7 billion US dollars out of the total $1.9 billion US dollars. This underscores that expanding into Asian markets will take time, but it is an essential strategy to mitigate risks when the U.S. market fluctuates. On April 11, many Canadian processing plants cut contracts with farmers. In Manitoba, potato acreage has dropped by 10 to 20%. For a farmer cultivating 20 hectares, this reduction could mean losing tens of tons of potatoes and tens of thousands of dollars in income. Some contracts have even been canceled outright, leaving farmers with thousands of bags of seed potatoes in storage, or forcing them to sell off the crop for animal feed at much lower prices. The impact is not limited to growers. Jobs in transportation, packaging, and cold storage are also being cut. In Alberta, the picture is somewhat brighter. Large plants, such as the Coaldale facility, are investing in new value-added processing lines. If successful, this could create stable jobs for hundreds of local workers, from machine technicians to packaging staff. But that's a story for the near future. For now, many farm families are already tightening their budgets, knowing this year's harvest will be leaner